Hi everyone. Okay, so we're going to get started on our Acute Afghan. I've chained a multiple of 12 plus 1 stitches now. For my multiple, because I'm just giving a demonstration, I've only chained 25, which is 12 times 2 plus 1 stitches. So let's get started. Now we're going to insert our hook from the second chain from the hook. So we don't want this first one here, we want the second chain. Now for most Tunisian projects, you can quite often you'll be asked to go into the spine of the chain, which is perfectly okay. I actually like to do it that way. It keeps a really nice edge on your work. But for the purpose of this, when you're still getting the hang of Tunisian crochet, just go into the top of your chains just so that you can kind of keep track where you're going. So we're just going to go in here, insert our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we're working on the base triangles. Okay, so this is row 1 of the base triangles. That's the forward pass, and there's always a return pass. And the return pass for this part is yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so you'll see that we've got our starting chain. This is our starting loop here, and this here is the first stitch that we've made. Now we want to go, see how we've got this front section of the vertical bar, and then we've got a back section of the vertical bar, and we've got this little crossover bit. We want to use the front part and the edge of the crossed over piece, which is just here. We're going to insert a hook under there, and then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we go into the next chain, insert the hook there, yarn over, pull up a loop. So this is row 2. We've got 3 loops on the hook. We're going to start our return pass again. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so if you're going to work a simple stitch, you would go just in the front part of this vertical bar here. You'll see you've got a vertical and a vertical bar here. That's the front vertical bar, that there is the back vertical bar, and across here is the horizontal bar. The horizontal bars are made when you do your return pass. We're ignoring the horizontal bars, and we're going to go in between the front and the back vertical bars right there. Make sure we don't catch any of the horizontal loops. Going under, picking up a loop. There we go. And now we're back to the stitch closest to the chain. Remember, we've got that front vertical bar, the back vertical bar, and the kind of twisty bit. We're going the front vertical bar, and we want the twisty bit on there as well. Yarning over, pulling up a loop. We're going into the next chain now. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Okay, we now have 4 loops on the hook, and we're going to work our return pass. This is row 3, and the return pass is still the same. It's yarn over, pull through 1. Make sure that yarn over, pull through 1 that you leave nice and loose. You don't want it too tight, otherwise you're going to have trouble getting into it when you get to the next row. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And you're starting to get a bit of a triangle here now. Okay, so we're going to knit stitch into this one here. So we don't worry about these first ones because that's just what's left from the hook here. So we're going to knit stitch, so in between the front vertical bar and the back vertical bar. Don't catch any of the horizontals. You want to go under the horizontals. Pull up a loop. We're doing the same here. There's the front vertical bar, the back vertical bar. We're going in and under the horizontal bars, pulling up a loop. We're back down to the last stitch before we get to the chain, and we want in between the front and the back vertical bars. There's the front, there's the back. Now that little twisty bit, that's the start of our horizontal pass. Make sure you get those both over the edge of your hook. Pull up a loop, and then work into the next chain. Yarn over, pull up a loop. So now we've got 5 loops on the hook, and this is row 4's return pass is the same again. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, we're going to keep going in that manner until we have a total of 12 loops on our hook, and then we're going to make sure that there's 12 stitches and 11 rows before we do the slip stitches. Okay, so knitting, knit stitch into each of these stitches, so in between the front vertical bar and the back, under the horizontal bars. If you need to manipulate your fabric a little bit so you can see it better, that's okay. Front vertical bar, back vertical bar. So if you're right-handed, your front vertical bar will be towards the left, your back vertical bar will be towards the right. If you're left-handed, it'll be the other way around. You'll have your front vertical bar on the right and your back vertical bar on the left. Okay, so I've just worked into the chain there. I've got 2, 4, 6, yarning over, pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, and we keep pulling through 2 until the end. We're getting there now. I'm on row 6 now. So knit stitch, so you've got the front vertical bar here, back vertical bar here. See how it just hides behind the horizontal bar there? And it's the same all the way across. The front vertical bar, back vertical bar, and the horizontal bar goes between the two. We're going in through here, ignoring that horizontal bar as much as we can. And please excuse me if I sound a little bit sniffly. I've got a touch of a cold. And into the chain. There it is. 2, 4, 6, 8. No, 7. 2, 4, 6, 7. That's right. Yarn over, pull through 1. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. All the way to the end. So essentially we work stitches on the hook and then we work stitches off the hook. Okay. And don't forget, ignore this first loop here. And don't lose it. One, 2, 3. I don't normally do videos, guys, so please excuse my nervousness and angles or whatever. I'm trying something new today, so bear with me. There we go, into the next chain. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Yarn over, pull through 1. Yarn over, pull through 2, and 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay. I'm at a very awkward angle too. My stand is broken. Okay, so as you get up higher, don't be afraid to move everything around. See the front vertical bar, there's the back vertical bar, the horizontal bar's here, and we're working in there, underneath the horizontal bar, picking up a loop. There we go. It's okay for you to pause the video, rewind it, do whatever you need to do to kind of get the hang of what's happening. There we go. That last one can be a bit tricky, and into the next chain. So I should now have 9 loops on my hook. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yarn over, pull through 1. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. All the way to the end. I hope I don't have that creepy heavy breathing thing going on. I'm not feeling very well, so if I do, I'm sorry. And if you want to pick on my fingernails, go ahead. I don't get to the manicurist very often, I don't paint them. It's okay. We're almost to the end of this one. And into this, pull up the loop. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So essentially every time that you finish your next row, you're picking up a loop in the next chain, which is building a new foundation for the triangle. So if you have a look at the way that this is going here and the angle of my hook there, we're actually building a nice triangle here, yeah? 6, 8, 10. Alright. So I've got 2 more rows to go. Now if you ever get lost on which row you're on or how many stitches you should have, I'm going to show you a little trick when I get to the end of this return pass here for you to count. So if you have a look, this is what we call the selvage. So I'm not sure if I've pronounced that right. I probably haven't, that's okay. It's written in the pattern as selvage. This is what I call it all the time. This here, you'll see what looks like chains on the edge. So a little bit shaky. This is the first stitch here. So down here, this is a row 1, and then we're going to go row 2. Looks like chains. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got 9 rows already made, and that 1 loop on the hook means that I'm up to row 10. Okay, so row 10, we're going to sorry, the snotty. Row 10, we need to Tunisian knit stitch into the next 9 stitches and then pick up another loop. So we'll end up with 11 stitches on at the end of this row, the forward pass at least. 1, there's another knit stitch. Now you can do this in Tunisian simple stitch. I really prefer the texture of the knit stitch. I don't know why. It's just I don't know, a thing, a fetish, a sensory thing. I'm not sure. I like the way that the knit stitch feels. I like the way that it looks. It's I call it crochet illusions because it kind of it looks like knitting, but it's not. So this works just as well with simple stitch. You could probably try it with any of the other stitches as long as you're keeping to the same number of stitches and the same number of rows. It should work just fine. Okay, so there's my row 10, row 11, 1, 2. Now don't be too funny about the way that you hold your hook or your yarn. Everybody holds their yarn and their hook differently. It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. I know ladies who hold their working yarn in their right hands and they kind of hook it over as if they're knitting. That's okay, as long as it works, as long as the stitches can be made, then don't panic about holding your hook or your yarn in a particular way. It doesn't really matter. Now 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Fantastic. So this is the return pass of row 11. It's yarn over, pull through 1, then you pull through 2 all the way to the end. And then when we've finished this row, we're now on row 12, and we're going to work a slip stitch. Whoops. We're going to work a slip stitch into each stitch all the way down into the next chain. So this closes off our triangle, our first base triangle, and it forms the foundation for the start of our next triangle. Okay, so we're going to insert, just as if we're going to knit, into that first stitch, and then we're going to slip it through. And again, it's one of these things, your chains and your slip stitches should be made really quite loosely so that you can work into them later. If you have it too tight, you'll find it's difficult to get your hook in there for the next series of triangles. So into here, just as if you're going to knit. and you'll see when you get to the bottom, you'll actually see that those slip stitches tend to lean forward on the fabric. See that? They kind of sit forward. That's okay, because when we get to the closing triangles, they get pulled up with the next row of stitches. It's okay. If you insert your hook as if to work a simple stitch after you've worked your knit stitch, you end up with a bit of a gapey hole, and you don't really, I don't know if you can see that. It doesn't look the same. Now, when you get to the bottom, I'm almost there. Don't forget that last stitch, this one here, the tricky one. And then we slip down into the next chain. Now what that does, it means that we have 12 stitches going up and 12 stitches going down. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and that first stitch up the top, that first slip stitch, counts as your 12, and then that also counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches down to the bottom. So this first stitch on all of the rows counts for both your rows and your stitches along. Okay. Now once you've got to the bottom, you've put your last slip stitch into that next chain. You basically just start all over again, and you insert the hook into this next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn, now we return pass, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and then you go back to the very beginning and you keep on working one row on top of the next so that you've got another triangle. Okay, I'll do this and I'll come back. Okay, I'm back again. Now I've got my 2 triangles and I'm just about to do the slip stitches across the top. So remember, when you're working those slip stitches, insert your hook as if you were going to do a knit stitch, pull up a loop and just slip that through, making sure that your stitches are nice and loose. Yeah, so we're almost there, and I'll have 1 chain left right at the very end. And if you've counted your chains properly, you should always have just one chain left over to do your last slip stitch into. So there's the chain, and I'm going to slip stitch into there. Now I like to get rid of my ends, I kind of just chain 1, pull up the loop a little bit, and then trim. So I'll get rid of that. So you'll end up with 2 ends over here. You should always weave in your ends as you go, but when you're doing this kind of work, it's better to leave at least the first couple of rows undone until you know where all of your stitches are going to be. So we're going to leave it for now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do your right hand side triangle. I think in the pattern I called it the edge triangles. We've got the right side and then we've got the left side, and it's very much the same deal, but at one triangle you'll start on the right hand side of the triangle, you'll start from the bottom and work your way up to where your slip stitches are, and on the other side you'll work from the top of where your slip stitches are and you'll work your way down to the bottom of the slip stitches. So if I can find my hook, there we go. We're going to start with our first, there it is, our very first row, which is just down here. You'll know that it's your first row because you'll have this little, I don't know if you can see that, this little chain here. You can actually see there's like a little knot from where you've skipped that first chain. So here is our first stitch, and I like to pull up a loop instead of making a slip stitch and then inserting a hook and whatever. Make a slip, just slip a loop through and then pull the tail through the end of that and put your hook back in and pull it tight. Ta-da! Now we're going to pick up a loop in each of these stitches here. Remember, we're talking about how to count your rows, so you'll see little V's all the way up. These are our rows. Come on, close enough. Here, 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 here. So we've got this counts as our first stitch. Then we're going to pick up a new one. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, that noise, I don't know if you can hear it in the background. I've had a whale of a time trying to find some peace and quiet to tape today. I have a school that is directly across the road from my house, and the bell goes off 3 times a day for the kids to come out to play, so it's a little bit noisy. And now my next door neighbour, there's a vacant block next door, and the next door neighbour has just started building, so please excuse the noise. Okay, so you'll see here I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stitches. Remember, I inserted my hook. Remember how I was talking earlier about using that first slip stitch is used for it's the last stitch and the first stitch. So speaking of interruptions, my son's just arrived. Hello, Lachlan. So I've got 12 loops on the hook. Each of them come from either the selvage or the very first slip stitch that we made in our last row of that triangle. Now we're going to work return past B, so it's yarn over and pull through 2, and then we repeat the pull through 2 all the way to until we've got 3 loops left on the hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. We're just going to keep doing that, and when we've got 3 loops left on the hook right here, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so there's our first row. Then what we're going to do is we're going to skip this. Remember, we're ignoring this right hand stitch here. If you're left-handed, it'd be your left hand stitch. We're going to ignore this next stitch, so we're ignoring this first one here. We're going to ignore this one, we're going to ignore this one. So when I say skip a stitch, we're skipping this one here, and we're going to go into the next stitch. So remember our vertical loops and our horizontals, you can see them a little bit better here. Vertical loop, that's our front vertical bar, that's our back vertical bar we're working between, and underneath the horizontal bar to pick up our loops. And again, see the little hole going in there, picking up a loop. And remember, the holes that you want, where you want them, this is kind of an N almost when you pull it apart a little bit. You don't want to get in between there and there, otherwise you're going to have a wonky looking stitch. So we're going where those stitches are closest. Now I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 loops on the hook. Now I'm going to skip the stitch that's second to last. We're skipping, see, we've got this one here and then we've got this one here. We're ignoring the first one, we're going into the last, making sure that when you insert the hook you've got a front and a back loop over that stitch. There we go. So I should have 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then we do that return past B again. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and we're going to keep pulling through 2 until there's 3 stitches left on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Now there's 3 stitches left, so we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And we're going to skip again, so we ignore this first one, skip this one, go into this one here. And again, 1, 2, 3. And then we've got, see how it creates this upside down V. We're going to ignore this stitch, that's the second to last stitch. Then we're going, so we're skipping this one, going into the last stitch, picking up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 and 2 again. Now that I've got 3 loops left on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, again skipping that stitch there, into the next stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, skipping this stitch, going into the next, into the very last stitch. Okay, pulling through 2, return pass, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over. We've got 3 left on the hook, yarn over, pull through 3. So we just keep repeating that until we only have 3 loops left on the hook. 1, 2. So we skip the first and the second to last. Sorry, we're going to have 2 loops left on the hook. So we're skipping. We skip this one and we skip this one. So there's those 2 center stitches on this row, which is row 6. And we're going to insert the hook into the last stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So that makes our 6 rows, and then I've chained to fasten off and trim, and we have an edge triangle. Ta-da! Now, for the edge triangle on the other side, it's the same thing. You start, essentially it's the same, sorry, get that focused. It's the same steps as the right hand side triangle, only you're starting in your first slip stitch, so this stitch here, and you work your way all the way down and then repeat the same process again. So now I'm going to show you our closing triangles. So just like I started out of the yarn into this part here, I'm going to do the same thing, starting in the first slip stitch in the very point of the triangle. So we've got the point up here. So that first slip stitch is the last stitch for your selvage, and it's your first stitch for your rows. Okay, so inserting my hook, I'm going to pull up a loop, and then I'm going to grab hold of the tail and pull that through the loop loosely again, and then I'll tighten it once it's in there. Okay, so for our closing triangles, that's our first loop on the hook now. Going to insert the hook into the next slip stitch, so see that slip stitch there, and we're going to pick up a loop there. Insert the hook into the next slip stitch, pick up a loop. Insert the hook into the next slip stitch, under both loops of those slip stitch, by the way. Both loops of the slip stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. See how I'm pulling up a loop in each of those slip stitches? And what that does is it pulls the slip stitches up. You won't see them again in the next row. So just going to keep doing that, pulling up a loop in each of those slip stitches. Now, having to do this, I have a new appreciation for our wonderful friend Claire of Bob Wilson 123 and what she does, and our other amazing friends who post to YouTube tutorials and things like that. I don't do tutorials very often. They make me nervous, and it's very unnatural for me. So 2, 4, 8, 10, 12. Okay, so I've got 12 stitches on the hook. So they're the 12 stitches going down that side of the triangle, and then to join the first triangle with the second, I need to pick up a loop in the next, in the selvage of the next triangle. So the very first, remember how we're talking on this side of the triangle, how we've got those edges where you can count how many rows? You can do the same thing here. There's 1, 2, 3. This is the first one right here. It's right down the bottom. It tends to be a little bit gapey. We're going to go in there. We're going to pick up a loop. Now I've got 13 loops on my hook. Now this first one, for this return pass, instead of yarning over and pulling through 2 all the way across, I'm going to slip this first stitch underneath this second stitch. And what that does, don't pull it too tight because you'll need to get into this first stitch for the next row. So don't pull it tight, but just slip it through, and that gives you a really nice edge where your triangles meet. So just do that, and then we yarn over and pull through 2 all the way across until we have 3 loops left. So pulling through 2, pulling through 2. Now I've got 3 loops left, see there? Now we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And what that does, when you're yarning over and pulling through 3 loops at the end of a row, what that does is it decreases the stitch by 1. So what we're going to be doing is creating a triangle that's upside down, and it's straight from this point to this point. It will be straight across there. Okay? So, pardon me. So what we're going to be doing again is we ignore this first one, then we skip this one here, and then we're going to the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. And then we work it just the same, picking up loops all the way down. So we're still inserting our hook as if to knit, so you've got your front vertical bar and your back vertical bar, and then the horizontal bar that's created by the return pass. We're going between the front and the back vertical bars, underneath the horizontal bar, and picking up a loop. And we're going to keep doing that all the way down. Now some people I think in class were getting a little bit confused with this last stitch, because it can tend, if you pull it too tight, it can tend to get a bit lost. So you'll still see that you've got a front vertical bar and a back vertical bar. You want to try and get in there, and underneath, see I've gone underneath that horizontal bar, and I'm going to pick up a loop there. Then I'm going to, this is the next selvage stitch, I'm going to pick up a loop in there. So now I should have 12 loops on my hook. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That's right. The first loop on the hook is going to be dragged through the second, slipped through the second loop to close the triangle together, to join it together, and then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across until we've got 3 loops left on the hook. Okay, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. Ta-da. Again, I'm sorry for my sniffling and my grouchy voice and the possibility that I'm making the creepy, heavy breathing sounds. Hopefully I'll get the hang of this video thing sooner or later, and we'll be able to post some more without all of those things going on. So we're going to skip the first stitch. I'm just going to remember, we ignore this one altogether. We're going to skip that first stitch, then we're going to work into this stitch. So 1, 2, there we go. Okay, there we go. So I've got my vertical bar there, picking up a loop in that last stitch, go into the next selvage stitch, picking up a loop in there. I'll have 9 left there now. 2, 4, 6, 8, sorry, 11, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong row on the pattern while I'm doing it. Don't mind me. So remember, loosely pull that, slip that first stitch through the second, and then yarn over, pull through 2 until you've got 3 stitches left on your hook. Pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now I've got 3 loops left, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, and we just keep doing that. We keep skipping that first stitch, picking up loops, picking up a loop in the next triangle, and then on the way back we slip the first stitch, and then we yarn over, pull through 2 until we've got nothing left, yarn over, pull through 2 until we've got 3 left. So there we go, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through 2 until we've got 3 loops left on the hook. And when we've got 3 left, ta-da, yarn over, pull through all 3. So you can see how that's really nicely joining those 2 triangles up together. And if we look closely, get those thread ends out of the way, it's starting to flatten out across the top to meet up the top with the top of the other triangle. So we're going to keep on doing that until we get to the other edge triangle, and I'll show you how to do that too. I know I've sort of tried to explain it, but if I show, it should be a little bit more helpful than me trying to muddle my way through. There we go, picking up the next selvage stitch, slipping the first one, whoops, yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across until we've got 3 left. And pulling through all 3. Now we're just going to keep doing that, keep skipping that first stitch, picking up loops, don't forget that last stitch, and don't forget your selvage stitches. Okay, I hope my hands are not in the way too much. There we go. So don't forget, if you're having trouble finding your stitches, just kind of manipulate the fabric a little bit. You can pull it up and stretch it out and you'll find your stitches a little bit easier then. There we go. And then, now I did originally start this video with purple yarn, but it was too light to show up properly with the white background. So I had to start it all over again. Okay. So still just picking up stitches, slipping the first one. I've got 3 loops left on the hook. Pull through all 3. Now remember that slip stitch, this one here, this first stitch, make sure it's loose, okay? You want to be able to get your stitches through and into the space where you want them. So 2 knit stitches, selvage stitch, slip, yarn over, pull through 3, and this is the last selvage, yarn over, pull through 3, and then we slip stitch into that first slip stitch, which is the very point of your triangle. And you'll keep doing those closing triangles all the way across your work until you are up to, so you just repeat those steps. So you're picking up your loops. Now that I'm back up here, I would, if I had another triangle here, I'd be picking up loops, slipping 1, pulling through 2 until I get to the last 3. And that's just, you just keep repeating that sequence. It's a very repetitive pattern. It's very easy. Once you've got the hang of it, once you've got the hang of the real basics, you've got it down. You don't need to do anything else. Now, for the edge triangle on the left hand side, remember I don't need to because I'm right at the end. So if you're right-handed, you'll find that your right hand side of the work will have a couple of extra ends on this side. But when you get to here, once you've done that right edge triangle, do your closing triangles until you get to the end, and then all you need to do is just pick up all of those stitches. So pick up a loop in each of those slip stitches, and there should be 12 of them. So pulling up, remember under both loops of your slip stitches as well, please. And the very last one. Okay, so I should have 12. Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Beautiful. And then just like we worked this edge triangle, we're going to work this one too. So it's yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Oops. Pull through 2. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we've got just 3 loops left on our hook. I've only pulled through 1 there. And yarn over and pull through all 3. So I'm going to get this edge triangle done because I've already shown you how to do them. Essentially they're the same thing, it's just picking up the stitches is different. So I'll do this and then I'm going to come back and show you how to get your base triangles started for your next row. Okay, so I'm back again and we've just finished our first row of closing triangles, and I've got the base triangles done and the edge triangles are all done. This is what your first row will look like. Now to get started on our second row of base triangles, I'm going to grab my yarn and I'm going to insert my hook into the last row of our edge triangle. So you'll be able to see on the top there that you've got your little V's. The last one is just here on this edge. So I'm going, if you're left-handed, it will be on the other side. So I'm grabbing my blue yarn again. I'm just going to pull up a loop. And then I'm going to take the tail through that loop, and that fastens it off and gets you started. Okay, so we're going to, it's just working the base triangles the same as you did when you were making your first one, but there's a few little, especially on this first base triangle, there's a little quirk that I need to show you. So I've added my yarn, I'm going to pull up a loop in the next space, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, that's our first row done. I'm going to insert my hook into that first stitch and then insert my hook into the next space and do my return pass. That's our second row done. So remember, when you're doing them, you've got your front vertical bar, your back vertical bar, and you're going in between the two and underneath the horizontal bar. Don't forget that, it can be a bit tricky. So I'm just going to make this first few rows just the same as we did for the bottom. And when you get to, oh, you'll get to row 7, and that's where the little quirk comes in. So we've got 4, sorry, I should say row 6. When we get to row 6, we've got a little quirk that we need to worry about. So here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. Row 6. Now instead of moving straight over into the next space of your closing triangle, we're actually going to work row 6 into this, the top of this base triangle here. Now the reason why we're going to do that is because we still need to have that, remember we did chain 12 plus 1. Now if you count all the spots in the top, we only have multiples of 12, not the plus 1. So we're always going to treat the top of the first base triangle as our plus 1. Otherwise you've got no space to do your last slip stitch into. So pulling up our loops in our 6th row of our base triangle. And the other thing that happens too, if you don't work into this space here and you just keep going along here, besides not having anywhere to put your last slip stitch, the whole item will skew off to the left. If you're right-handed, it will skew off to the left because that's the way that the stitches all travel. If you're left-handed, just all of your work will skew off to the right, because if you're putting that last stitch into the same space as the last row that you've worked, all the time you'll just be building it up sideways. So we want to work that extra stitch into the top of your base triangle from the previous row. So, and it's just working it exactly the same as you worked your previous base triangles, except you're using the spaces that you've created on your closing triangles and your edge triangles to work the last stitch of your row into. So there we go. Now that we've done that one into the top of our base triangle below, we're going to work into the next stitch from the closing triangle. Everything else is the same as the first row, so if you need to have a bit more instruction on that base triangle, just pause and replay the video from the beginning. So we're just still going as this, inserting our hook as if to do a net stitch all the way along, picking up our loops. And doing our return passes until we've got 11 rows, and then we slip stitch off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you ever forget which row you're on, it's really good to either count the stitches on the side and then count the loops that you've picked up, and that way you'll make sure that you've got the right number of loops on your hook for which row you're supposed to be on. I remember when I first started doing this, it can be quite easy if you're not paying attention to forget which row you're on, how many stitches you're supposed to have. So if you count both the stitches on the side and the stitches going down, you'll know where you're at. Okay. So I'm just going to do this first base triangle. I really wanted to just show you that the first part of this row because of that little quirk that we have going on there. And then after this, all you need to do is go back through the video and replay as often as you need to. Again, I'm going to apologise for my nervousness, I guess. I don't usually do videos. I usually leave that to Claire from Bob Wilson, and she's the professional, not me. With the videos, I do as best as I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then one more row. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, picking up my last loop. And don't forget to leave the return pass, especially on that first stitch, really quite loose. Otherwise you're going to have some trouble getting your next lot of stitches into there. Okay, so I should have 11 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I know that I have 12 stitches. And now I'm going to work my slip stitches down. So remember inserting your hook as if to knit, and then just slipping that loop that you pick up through the last stitch. And then you just keep on repeating the steps until your blanket is finished. Now you'll see that with this is the original pattern, not the alternative pattern. So with this, all of your base triangles will be standing on top of one another. So the base of your triangle, sorry, the tip of this base triangle points to the flat part of this one. If you're working the alternative pattern, your edge triangles are worked essentially the same, except the base triangles worked on top of your last closing triangle. So this triangle gets shifted over here, and you'll have a larger edge triangle. Other than that, that's pretty much it. There's not much to it. It's really quite simple. Once you get the hang of the Tunisian knit stitch and the stacking of those stitches on top of one another, you've got it. It's down. Okay. Remember, it's okay for you to keep rewatching the videos. If you need any extra support, let me know. I'll do my best to answer any questions. Thank you all for your patience while you've been waiting for this video. I know it's been a while. I really do appreciate it. Have a great time. Thanks for joining us on Crafty Adventures, and thank you for spending your time with Laura from the Crochet Case on the ship. I hope to see you again next year.